Hello and welcome to talking about big, hairy stuff. Big, hairy stuff. We're talking about werewolves today, but how rude of me, I must introduce myself first. Welcome back, returning cult members. Welcome if this is your first time here. Hello, I am the Antichrist, Satan's favorite daughter, enchantée, etc., etc. How else would Satan's favorite daughter spend her time? She watches horror movies and loves to talk about them. If you enjoy top 10 lists like this, or if you like getting reviews of all the latest horror movies, then click subscribe. Also click the like button and the notification bell, that way you never miss the next video. Today we have to talk about werewolves. I have been in my werewolf era for the last couple of months. Yes, it was inspired by Lee Whannell's Wolfman. No, that movie will not be making it even to an honorable mention spot on this list. Prior to this, I was in my vampire era, so you can also check out that top 10 list. Did that a couple months back. But today we're moving on to the lycanthrope variety of monster. This was a more difficult list to make for me than the vampire one. For one thing, I feel like there are just more vampire movies out there. There's a lot more variety in vampire movies, I've noticed. Like way more. My top 10 list was so diverse in the types of stories being told. Werewolf movies are not like that. I think that the majority of movies that I have on my list all have a lot of similarities. The only main difference in a lot of them is the decade they came out and the tone. It's a shame because it's a subgenre that is just so ripe for social commentary. You could use the metaphor of the werewolf for the fear of any kind of life change. So the amount of people that it is applicable to, this metaphor, it just sucks that it feels like it's underutilized. But I do have some great movies to share with you today. I did rustle up 10 amazing werewolf films and even a couple of honorable mentions, so I'll get into those first. I'm not going to go deep into those, okay? But first up, honorable mention, we have Twilight and we have Red Riding Hood. Now, Catherine Hardwicke actually directed the original Twilight and Red Riding Hood. Unfortunately, Red Riding Hood was a little bit boring. It just did not have the same kind of campy sauce as Twilight. That's why I didn't make top 10, but it is kind of the classic story of Little Red Riding Hood, just told in a very different way. And starring Amanda Seyfried, so I felt like shouting it out. Also Gary Oldman, I think. And Twilight, there's a lot of werewolf stuff going on, and it's very unique. I don't know another werewolf movie I've seen where they are actually just like giant wolves. I associate lycanthrope with a werewolf being bipedal, you know, they're man-like. Coming in at number 13, just didn't crack the top 10, would be Dog Soldiers. This was directed by Neil Marshall, who also gave us The Descent. I love The Descent, perfect film. This one just didn't quite hit the same. During a routine nighttime training mission in the Scottish Highlands, a small squad of British soldiers expected to rendezvous with a special ops unit instead find a bloody massacre with a sole survivor. This one, I remember the actual filmmaking itself really taking me out and feeling like the camera work was so shaky that I just couldn't see anything. Hopefully I'm not mixing that up with something else, but I just had a hard time with this movie. I thought that it was okay. It's one that I kept my physical media and I definitely plan to revisit at some point. It just was like a 3 out of 5, and that is actually a pattern that's going to continue with the next couple honorable mentions. The Howling is up next, which this is, I would say, like maybe the third most famous werewolf movie. I don't know. It's the one that comes up really consistently in my comment section. Of course, you know the main two. I'm sure that something is popping into your head and you know what I'm talking about. I will be talking about those movies in a minute here. This one's usually right beneath those in terms of like how often it's brought up. In Los Angeles, television journalist Karen White is traumatized in the course of aiding the police in their arrest of a serial murderer. Her doctor recommends that she attends an isolated psychiatric retreat led by Dr. George Wagner. But while she's undergoing therapy, her colleague Chris investigates the bizarre circumstances surrounding her shock. When his work leads him to suspect the supernatural, he begins to fear for Karen's life. It's a shame that I don't like this movie more because it presents really interesting themes in the vein of like working in entertainment. They are themes that are evergreen and I think are honestly more relevant now than they were when the movie came out. But the whole storyline of her going to this retreat and it almost being kind of like a cult movie, it distracts and doesn't all feel very cohesive to me, so it's not a favorite. However, I think that the transformation and the practical effects are maybe on par with An American Werewolf in London, and it's a shame to me that this movie often gets lost in that conversation. American Werewolf in London is the go-to for the practical effect transformation. This one is almost just as good, just the rest of the movie surrounding it is not quite as good. My final honorable mention is Bad Moon, and this one kind of pains me to not have in my top 10. I remember really enjoying it, but at the time I only gave it a 3 out of 5, so I know that there was something holding me back. I just didn't have time to rewatch it. Ted is working in Nepal when he and his girlfriend are attacked by a mysterious creature. Ted, though brutally maimed, survives, but his girlfriend is not so lucky. To help his recovery, he moves close to his sister Janet and her son Brett, but soon realizes he was attacked by a werewolf. He's helpless to stop his transformation, and only Brett's German shepherd Thor is able to see that Ted is a danger to everyone around him. I do remember the dog acting being absolutely phenomenal in this movie. I remember the practical effects being really fun. This is a 1993 film. Good early 90s vibes before the effects of the 80s tapered off and we got more like thriller supernatural stuff in the late 90s. Also, this is totally off topic, but that movie stars Michael Pare. I actually starred in a movie with him last year and it's coming out in June. It's called Killer Doll. Keep your eyes peeled. I'm not sure if they're gonna keep that working title. I hope they do. But anyway, I think that if I rewatched Bad Moon, it would make its way higher up on my list. I'm not sure. I do remember it's very campy. It's not a very expensive movie, but super enjoyable. If you're a fan of the subgenre, this one needs to be on your list. Now we're finally getting into my actual top 10. I feel like all the movies on my list actually are so different tonally. Maybe I should take back what I said about there being less variety in werewolf stories. I think it's just that the method of transformation is almost always the same. Whereas with vampire movies, the lore is so diverse that there's just way more different stuff to pull from. But I think tonally I did a good job here. So starting at number 10, we have The Cursed. This was originally titled 8 for Silver, and I don't know why they changed it to be more generic and have more of a broad appeal to sell tickets. I don't know, but dumb choice. In 19th century France, a man arrives in a remote country village to investigate an attack by a wild animal. However, he soon discovers a much deeper and sinister force that has the manor and the townspeople in its grip. This one started off really strong. I have not seen this movie since I saw it in theaters, I want to say in 2021? Perhaps? And the first act, I remember just being so strong. I was so engaged. I went in really blind too, so I don't even think that I knew that it was a werewolf movie. I had no idea how this sort of lurking evil in the village would emerge. If you enjoyed The Witch, it has a very similar, very bleak tone. I do remember though, maybe because I had no expectations going in, the ride ended up being a little bit too weird for me, and that was why I think I ultimately gave it also a 3 out of 5. But the filmmaking is very strong. The acting is incredible. I think just thinking about it now, I feel like I would like it more on a rewatch. Unfortunately, it was another one that I didn't have time to sneak in there. I just remember that towards the ending, things started to sort of fall apart a little bit. I don't remember if it was like the logic of the film or just the actual werewolf elements themselves. I don't know if they fully were realized to me, but I do remember that my enjoyment kind of steadily declined, so that's why it's at number 10. But definitely a quality film and super worth checking out if you like werewolves. At number 9, we are completely shifting gears here, completely flipping the tone. I have Wes Craven's Cursed, and this is a movie that I really want to do a deep dive on eventually. I don't do those as much anymore. They used to be really big on my channel, but this is maybe historically the messiest production that has ever been in horror history. Yes, there are movies that have worse horror stories, like the conditions they were shooting Texas Chainsaw Massacre under, but Cursed, I can't remember what it was. It's something like only 16 minutes of the original footage made it into the final cut of the movie. They went through reshoot hell. It was Wes Craven versus I think Bob Weinstein, and how that production was just absolute hell for that poor sweet man. In Los Angeles, siblings Ellie and Jimmy come across an accident on Mulholland Drive. As they try to help the woman caught in the wreckage, a ferocious creature attacks them, devouring the woman and scratching the terrified siblings. The script was also initially written by Kevin Williamson, and so there are the bones of a good movie there. The movie's not good, but it's fine. I think it's so entertaining. I adore it. The first time I watched it, I gave it 4 stars, and then on my second viewing, it slipped down a little bit. She's a 3.5, but so endlessly entertaining. It's just unbelievable to me that it stars Jesse Eisenberg and Christina Ricci. Derek Mears actually gets to play the werewolf sometimes. I have to say that this is one of my favorite roles of Jesse Eisenberg's. It's also one of my favorite storylines about someone taking on the fact that they are becoming a werewolf. Jesse Eisenberg acts so unbelievably chill about it, or his character, Jimmy. People around him might freak out when he's telling them about it, but he's like, yeah, no, yep, turn into a werewolf. This is how it's gonna happen. That is so funny. The movie is hilarious. At times, yeah, unintentionally so. It's camp. Not gonna be for everyone, and I understand if it's not a movie for you, but if you love early 2000s antics, I think this one will be for you. At number 8, I have The Wolf of Snow Hollow. This one came out in, I think, October of 2020. A stressed out police officer struggles not to give in to the paranoia that grips his small mountain town as bodies turn up after each full moon. Now, the tone of this movie is all over the map. It's really confusing trying to figure out what exactly this movie wants to be, because sometimes it's over the top and ridiculous and it's so funny and it's clear that it's meant to be so. In other moments, it's like they're kind of playing up melodrama and it could go either way. You're like, I'm laughing, but am I really supposed to be? Feels 50-50. Some moments definitely do feel more serious and they feel kind of like a pointed commentary about, you know what? I'm not gonna tell you because I feel like that does kind of give it away. It's a whodunit. I love actually when there is a whodunit element to a werewolf movie. There should be more like that. That's a missed opportunity, but we'll get to that. I can't really touch on the themes of this movie without spoiling it, but I do really love the direction that this movie goes, and it's not gonna be for everyone, and maybe for some people it's not gonna have enough payoff. For some people the tone is gonna be definitely too weird, but I'm a sucker for that. One of my favorite filmmakers is Mark Duplass, and you can't explain his vibe. You can't really explain his stuff. It's his own special kind of atmosphere. This movie felt like that to me, and I don't think I've ever seen another filmmaker emulate the vibes of Mark Duplass. This movie did that, and it's a soft spot of mine, so I recommend. I don't know if you'll like it as much as me, but I very much enjoyed it. Oh, it also stars a young Chloe East. You love her in Heretic, right? She's quite a bit younger and just as talented. It's great. But now moving on to my number 7, I have Werewolf of London. No, not an American Werewolf in London. Werewolf of London. The one that came out all the way back in 1935, and it actually precedes Wolfman. While in Tibet researching a mysterious flower that purportedly takes its strength from the moon, botanist Wilfred Glendon is bitten by a strange creature. Back in London, Glendon becomes absorbed in his research of the plant and is annoyed by the appearance of fellow scientist Dr. Yogami, who reveals that the plant is the only known temporary antidote for werewolves. And speaking of Wolfman, I just realized I forgot to put the movie on my list. It probably should have made my top 10 because I give it 3.5 stars. It's just not my go-to for werewolf movies. Fun fact though, it is the first werewolf movie that I ever saw. It was shown to me by my grandpa, but it also is a bit of a different tale. He is a wolf man. He's not so much a werewolf. Does this make sense? I feel like the other movies on my list, they are much more like creature oriented. Wolfman, of course, I really should have given it its flowers. I can't believe I make this list and I don't include the ultimate werewolf movie. Oops. Honestly though, it would be at number 10. So it's fine. It doesn't matter. Consider it an honorable mention. Werewolf of London was better to me. It was more interesting. I enjoyed all the character dynamics more. I enjoyed the concept of this flower that grows in the moonlight. That's so fairy tale-ish and so magical. The drama just is more interesting to me. I think in Wolfman, he's a little bit more pathetic and he keeps trying to go after this woman that clearly does not want him. And Werewolf of London, if I remember correctly, there is like some kind of marital drama and other drama amongst friends and like the scientific community. It's good stuff. It's really painfully overlooked, so definitely check that one out if you haven't. Editing Kylie having to pop in here, as always. Not only did I forget to include the original The Wolfman, but there was another movie that I would have ranked at number 7 actually, that I didn't completely forget about, okay? It was a movie that I intentionally watched to make this list. It just was a movie that I forgot to actually put on the list. I keep my to-be-watched list separate from my actual ranking, like physically when I write them down, so I had removed it from my to-be-watched list because I watched it and then it just never made its way to the actual list. So anyway, that would be Silver Bullet. This is a Stephen King adaptation. It was released in 1985 when a series of unexplained murders occurs in the normally quiet town of Tarker's Mill. Excuse me. The residents decide to hunt down the killer. However, many of these vigilantes end up dead, and those who don't are no closer to finding an assailant. But when a young boy named Marty encounters a werewolf one night, the pieces begin to come together. I love the tone of this movie. I think it's just so much fun. It's a great little kind of coming of age moment as well. Stephen King takes some fun little digs at small town America while he's at it. I think there's great makeup. There's a great whodunit element to this movie as well. It was a 3.5 out of 5 for me, but I highly recommend Silver Bullet. Now, because there were not one but 2 movies that I forgot to include in this official ranking, I'm just gonna give you a brief overview of the corrected version of the list. Just starting at number 7 with Silver Bullet because I'm gonna move on to number 6 and then nothing changes from there. So there you have it. We got Silver Bullet, Werewolf of London, The Wolf of Snow Hollow, Cursed, The Wolfman, The Cursed, and then of course the rest of the honorable mentions. And yes, I ended up deciding that I would put Cursed at number 10 over for the original The Wolfman. The rules of the ranking of my list usually just consist of what am I gonna reach for next? What is the most rewatchable to me? And Cursed is one that I just have a lot more fun with, so I gotta live my truth there. You can fight about it in the comments down below, whatever. But now let's get on to my top 6. Now, number 6, I'm gonna talk about a movie that we all know and love. I have An American Werewolf in London. I'm sorry that she didn't crack top 5, but this is my truth, okay? David and Jack, 2 American college students, are backpacking through Britain when a large wolf attacks them. David survives with a bite, but Jack is brutally killed. As David heals in the hospital, he's plagued by violent nightmares of his mutilated friend, who warns David that he is becoming a werewolf. I would actually like to redirect you to a deep dive that I did on this film a while back, because I don't want to restate everything that I've said about this movie before, and also just restate things that a million people have said. We don't need to talk about that transformation scene anymore. We all know. What I really enjoy about this film, and what puts it above the others that didn't make it up so high, is that there's really poignant commentary about post-World War II and follow-up generations to all of that violence, and how Jewish people were having to kind of unpack that for themselves. American Werewolf in London really does explore the otherization of Jewish people, and then for Christ's sake, he has like the nightmares about Nazi werewolves breaking into his home, I think. Or are they zombies or something? I don't know. The nightmare sequences are also just like amazing, and when he's hallucinating Jack, gotta love that. The makeup is just so on top of being an excellent popcorn movie with great gore and great makeup, it's also very intellectually challenging. But that's everyone's favorite. I have a feeling that when I ask you guys at the end to give me your top 10, that one is probably going to be number 1 for majority of people. That's just my guess. I guess we'll see. Moving on to number 5, I have Teen Wolf, starring Michael J. Fox, released in 1985. When high school nerd Scott Howard learns from his father Harold that being a werewolf runs in the family, he decides to take advantage of his freakish trait. With his newfound strength and agility, Scott quickly becomes the hero of his school's basketball team while winning over longtime crush Pamela Wells. I might love this movie a lot more than the average movie goer. I could easily see that being the case, but this movie has a lot going for it. This movie is weirdly deep if you let it be. I mean, obviously it's just a good, fun, campy time. I think more than anything, obviously it's like a coming of age. This boy is coming to terms with something that was genetically passed down to him from his father, and it's just such a relatable thing. We all go through that reckoning with our genetics and what's happening to us during puberty. For some of us that got to be really athletic when we hit that time and our coordination fell into place, we had a similar arc to Michael J. Fox, you know? He played basketball, I played volleyball, I did track. It's a great time being a teenager, but then you also start to learn the more like adult stuff that comes with it. It's a real catch-22, and honestly, I feel like this movie captures that well. It's also so funny. It's so funny. The scene where he first becomes a werewolf and his dad comes in, are you kidding me? Yet another big tone shift. I guess it's the most similar to Cursed, but this one is more of a straightforward comedy. Like, I wouldn't say that there are any horror movie elements to this movie. That's yet another one where on the surface, it's just a great popcorn flick. It's a broad comedy, but then under the surface, there's just a lot of relatability, a lot of good meat to chew on. Moving on to my number 4, we have Werewolves Within. This released in 2021, and it was directed by Josh Rubin, who just released Hard Eyes this year. A snowstorm traps town residents together inside the local inn, where newly arrived forest ranger Finn and postal worker Cecily must try to keep the peace and uncover the truth behind a mysterious creature that has begun terrorizing the community. I loved this movie so much, and I know that the comedy in it is going to be a little bit too offbeat for most people. I'm pretty sure that's why this wasn't a hit, but I could easily see this becoming a cult classic. You saw the cast, it's phenomenal. Everyone definitely pulls their weight. If you recently saw Companion that released this year, it stars Harvey Guillen. Once again, we have a pretty straightforward comedy that's just a blast, but then very transparent themes about paranoia and community, or our lack thereof right now. There are all different types of characters in this small town. Everyone knows everyone, but everyone is incredibly different from one another, and I think that's part of like the social satire element of it, is taking all these tropes of people. There's like the gay couple, there's the loner that tries to live off the grid, there's the conspiracy theorist couple. A very obvious pandemic era film, even though the pandemic has nothing to do with the film itself, but it's a really fun whodunit. This was the whodunit I was referencing earlier. It's unbelievable to me that that is something that has not been capitalized on. The reveal, I was truly gagged. I did not see it coming, and this movie used my own expectations and my own, I guess, biases just based on all the tropes I've been fed all my life to really knock me on my ass with the reveal. I loved the movie. I had a blast with it, so I highly recommend. Now we're getting into my top 3, and 2 of these movies honestly feel like cheating a little bit, but it's my list and it's my truth. both. So if you be annoying about it, I'm so block happy. Like, I just don't care. Don't be annoying. I don't want to hear it. Coming in at number 3, we have Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. During Harry Potter's 3rd year, yes, he is mainly just having to reckon with the fact that his godfather betrayed his parents and he's trying to track down Sirius Black. But a subplot going on, and something that is very much at the forefront of the climax of the film, is a werewolf thing. It's a werewolf thing. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, it's a werewolf movie. This is one of my favorite looking werewolves in cinematic history. I'm not even that crazy about the look of the wolf in An American Werewolf in London, because why is it quadrupedal? He should be on 2 feet. Werewolves, they walk around on 2 feet, okay? The fact also that he is like a naked werewolf in Harry Potter makes it all the more disturbing. The movie terrified me as a child, but it was probably the movie of the franchise that I watched the absolute most. I enjoy that it is a proper traditional monthly affliction. You can also read into it as a plethora of other metaphors, just because the character of Lupin is also very rich. Also low-key, the fact that Sirius is an animagus and he's like this big black dog, come on. I know an animagus is not the same as a werewolf, but still, he's a dog. He looks like a wolf. I think the werewolf atmosphere is strong in the 3rd Harry Potter film, and that's just my truth. And I need to give similar disclaimers, I think, for my number 2 pick, because that would be Trick or Treat. And if you didn't know that there was a werewolf segment in that movie, well, now you do. It is a bit of a reveal, but that movie is nearly 20 years old now, and it's a classic, I would say. I don't even think it's like a cult classic anymore. So hopefully you know. If you didn't though, I'm sorry. If you don't know what the movie's about, it is an anthology. It's a true anthology, but all the stories ultimately get woven together. And one of them involves werewolves. I won't spoil which one because it is like a delicious twist. I want to talk about it more because the depiction of werewolves in this movie, I'm like, yes, that's what they should be. That is always the energy that they should inhabit. It is probably my favorite transformation scene of all time in any werewolf film. And I know that that's saying a lot, but to me, it's less so about the effects, which are practical, and more so just about the atmosphere of it. The fact that it's a moment in the movie that truly just knocks you on your butt and makes you go, what? And it still gets to me every time I watch the movie. I still love it just as much. It's that powerful, that gripping, that saucy, that sexy of a moment. I feel very strongly about it. So that is why it had to make the number 2 spot. Also, I know that it's not a werewolf movie in its entirety, and so that's why it kind of feels like cheating a little bit, but Trick or Treat to me is a perfect film. I just love it so much, and so I am gonna give it its flowers on this list. I could have put it lower because there's only one major scene with the wolves, but it is just that impactful to me, so I gotta live in my truth. Now, my number 1, to probably literally nobody's surprise, we have Ginger Snaps. Of course it's Ginger Snaps. Of course it's this 2000 masterpiece. This is the story of 2 outcast sisters, Ginger and Bridget, in the mindless suburban town of Bailey Downs. On the night of Ginger's first period, she is savagely attacked by a wild creature. Ginger's wounds miraculously heal, but something is not quite right. Now Bridget must save her sister and save herself. This movie is the ultimate example of using the werewolf metaphor to its fullest potential, because going through puberty as a woman, you feel like you're turning into a fucking monster. You are angry all the time, you are sad all the time, you cannot control these giant mood swings, your body is in pain, it is getting hairier, not just growing pains, but cramps, like your body is literally transforming and stretching, and you're going through all these uncomfortable things in your social life as well, and you just don't know how to conduct yourself, and for a while it really makes you lose your mind. I'll tell you, I don't even really look at photos of myself from high school. That's how much I don't really want to relive the pain of that time. It was a good time. I had lots of friends, I dated around, I was on sports teams. I still shudder to think of like who I was when all those hormones were just raging through my body, and it was becoming apparent to myself and my loved ones that I was mentally ill. I don't want to think about that, but Ginger Snaps allows me to really have empathy for myself and to kind of remember that time from a safe distance though, and a couple steps removed. It helps me to process some of those feelings from a safe distance and in a healthier way, I would say. Girlhood and the transition to womanhood is so hard, and there are so few resources for girls. There is so little scientific inquiry also to the systems of our bodies that it's so isolating, and I think this movie captured it so beautifully. Tragically, but beautifully and perfectly. I guess I can throw an honorable mention to the sequels of Ginger Snaps. I'm really not fond of the second film. I also have my major gripes with the third film. film, but I find the third one to actually be really entertaining, and I enjoyed it. Maybe at the time what they were trying to go for in the third movie seemed progressive, but it's definitely like it's got its problems. I just really enjoy the atmosphere. I love that they went prequel with it. If you have seen Red Riding Hood that I mentioned earlier, then it has a similar atmosphere actually to that. I think it takes place around the same time. One of the most interesting departures that a franchise has ever taken, I feel like. So I recommend checking out all of the Ginger Snaps films, but that first one is the best werewolf film that has ever been made. To me, it's not even close. I do give Trick or Treat and Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban a perfect 5-star rating each, but because I was cheating a little bit with those movies, it's not in the same bracket. It's not in the same league as Ginger Snaps. A lot of you guys knew this. Did you see that coming? I know that a lot of my returning subs did, but what is your top 10 list? Or if you don't have 10, because I know that some of these are difficult for me to find, maybe just give me your top 3 or your top 5, or even just your favorite, whatever. Then go and check out my top 10 vampire list. You can check out my solo reviews of all the recent horror movie releases. You can check out my monthly recaps. I do that every single month. Then you can mosey on over to my second channel where I talk a lot about physical media and I post spooky vlogs and things of that nature. And if you join the Patreon, depending on which tier you join, you get a bonus video every single week. So I highly encourage you to check that out. And just another reminder that the GoFundMe for my next short horror film is also linked down below. So check it out. All the links you need, they're all there. You can check out my previous directorial works. But more than anything, I just hope that you enjoyed today's video and I hope I catch you in the next one. Bye.